Where the fuck is he? Katsuki yelled, frantically flicking his gaze over you as you lay limp in Edro's arms. His mind swirled with possibilities of why you fainted so suddenly. Did you have internal injuries? A concussion? Broken bones masked by the adrenaline? Had too much time passed? Would they still be able to save you? Edro laid you carefully on his bed, his hands hovering over you, along with his worried crimson eyes. He looked so desperate, as though he wanted to do something, anything, if just to wake you up, to ensure you were okay. Denki crowded in with Mina and Zero in Edro's small room. He held his phone to his ear. He said he'll be here soon. Soon is not quick enough, Katsuki growled. He needs to be here now. We don't know why they fainted. They could have fucking minutes while Deku takes his sweet fucking time. I'm here, Kachan, I'm here. Came the hurried pant of a green-haired man rushing through the door. He lugged a heavy suitcase awkwardly into the crammed room, and straightened when he found the reason he'd been called. His emerald eyes scanned you, critically evaluating the extent of your seen injuries, with a concerned crease above his eyebrow. What happened? He murmured, stunned by your state of being. They were in an accident. Please, Midoriya, help them. Edro pleaded, trembling with worry. Izuku nodded, taking up his assured persona of confidence and determination, delivering his classic worn-out line, the sentence falling from his lips like peeling old paint. But that's not to say he didn't mean it. I'm going to do everything I can to help them, Kirishima-kun. But I need this room cleared. Now. Denki and Zero were quick to leave, not wanting to impede on Izuku's process. However, Edro faltered, staring at you with fear and guilt, and stayed, until Mina gently ushered him away with an arm draped over his shoulder. Katsuki followed behind, shoulders tense with reluctance, his fists clenched with restraint. Violent ruby eyes met your form, but the turbulent mess of emotions held in vermilion was not as easily read as his partner's. His eyes jerked to Izuku, who understood only one message projected by Katsuki's glare. A warning. Save you, or bear the wrath of Bakugou Katsuki. There was a time when Izuku would have shuddered under such a threat, but now he conveyed what he hoped was assurance to his childhood friend. I got this, Kachan. They're gonna be okay. Katsuki gave a single nod before his glossy eyes drew back to you briefly, and he stormed out of the room, like he was fighting a tether pulling him back. The tether being you. And Izuku would have to make sure you remained tethered to this earth, to Katsuki and Edro. And so, he began. The sparks of your mind are slow to ignite, as though frozen for 1,000 years and just beginning the gradual process of thawing out. You drag your eyes open with difficulty, lethargy sunk into your limbs. You try to sit up, to shake the overwhelming weight clinging to your body. Hey, careful, a voice said, quickly. You're still gonna be sore. Hands are on you, pressing you back, and you jerk away, not knowing this person touching you. Your skin pulls uncomfortably, and you grimace. Hey, it's okay. I'm Midoriya Izuku, a doctor. I stitched you up. Kachan call me. You blink at the man at your bedside, an image tugging at your brain at the sight of green hair and the splattering of freckles. Kachan? You question unsurely. Oh right, sorry, I meant Katsuki, your boyfriend. Kachan is my childhood name for him, Izuku explained bashfully. For a few blissful moments, you hadn't remembered the accident, the kidnapping, the lies told by the most important people in your heart. But Izuku, a whole other person who knew of this secret life, added a link to the chain of events crushing your soul. This was Katsuki's childhood friend, someone who knew about you, but you'd never met him. He was obviously familiar with Katsuki, and yet you hadn't an inkling of who he was. besides the fact that he'd seen to your injuries, apparently. You swallow the bitter pill of new and day-old information, aiming for politeness as you say, "Well, thank you for helping me." "No problem," he says cheerfully, walking away from you to an open dark green suitcase on the floor. "From what I can tell, your injuries aren't severe, which is really lucky for someone who was in 2 accidents." "Yeah, lucky," you mutter, with slight ire. Lucky might have been not having to experience consecutive accidents at all. Or lucky might have been your boyfriend's not having an entirely different life that they kept from you. Not that you were severely judging Tyke, the god of luck. When Izuku rose from the suitcase, he held a yellow bottle and a painfully sad, understanding smile. He placed the pills on the bedside table deliberately. "This is pain medication. It's not really over the counter, so you'll have to call me if you run out. Just follow the instructions on the label. You'll heal with rest and time." You eye the pills and then Izuku, who projected the aura of someone who loved to help others. Though you don't expect the answer you want, you ask, "Is there any way you can take me home?" Izuku's emerald eyes tinted with contrition. "From what I hear, it's not safe for you to go home." His tone was kind as he let you down. You clench your jaw, crossing your arms and looking away from him. "It's not fair for me to be stuck here. Katsuki makes some fucking Yakuza-type enemies, and I'm forced to be here with my 2 lying boyfriends. Do you know how rare that sentence must be? Not one, but both of them are little snakes." "Cute snakes," you frowned to yourself. Izuku shifted uncomfortably, and you sigh, feeling a little guilty for complaining to a guy you just met. "Never mind, it's not really your problem." You glance at Izuku, who shone with compassion and a knowing look. He pulled a chair to the side of the bed. "It's okay. I know how difficult this must be for you, and how difficult Kachan can be. Maybe when you're not so mad, I can tell you about how he was when he was a child. They've mentioned you a few times and I've always wanted to meet you." And yet, they'd never mentioned a Midoriya Izuku to you, you thought sadly. A double beep sounded in the small room, and Izuku sighed, pulling out a small device from his pants pocket. "Sorry, I have to go. I have a lovely woman with Alzheimer's who's throwing a fit, demanding to know why we won't let her drink after her liver transplant." Izuku bent to close up his suitcase. "If anything happens with your stitches, or if you experience any dizziness or vomiting, my number is on the label. Please try not to take more medication than you need. They are addictive." Izuku's smile widened as he said goodbye. He held his suitcase with 2 hands and looked more as though he was a teenager being shipped off to boarding school than a doctor who had just treated you. "It was great meeting you. I hope to see you again soon." Despite yourself and the shitty situation you were in, you smile. Izuku seemed like a nice person to befriend. "It was nice meeting you too. Thanks for everything." Izuku leaves, and a few moments of silence ticks by. You stare at the ceiling and wonder just how you'd manage to get into the situation, and how the fuck to get out. And then, a timid knock alerts you to the open door. Edro is in the threshold, holding a bowl with contents that smell delicious, and a glass of juice. His lips are quirked in a nervous smile, and you narrow your eyes at him, the anger from before simmering over your heart. Behind him, Katsuki stands stiffly, avoiding your gaze, as though Edro had forced him there at gunpoint. His ruby eyes glance up only once, for they're back to something apparently more interesting than you. Edro walks in and says, "Midoriya says you're good to eat?" You turn away from him, rolling over in your blankets. Edro pauses. The small bubble of hope he had that you would forgive them burst and let his heart plummet. He tries to keep the tears from reaching his voice. "I know you're angry, and you don't want to see us, but you should eat." When you continue to ignore them, Edro looks to Katsuki for help. but Katsuki is looking at you, his expression unchanged, but his eyes holding the dregs of heartbreak and rejection, like your refusal of them now was all the answer he needed, not an answer that Eidro was willing to accept. "I'll just leave the food here," he says, setting the glass and the bowl on the bedside table. He was so close to you, and yet knew he would not be permitted to touch you, to hold you, and cry of how happy he was to see you were okay after worrying through the night. "Pebble," he began, wanting to say anything to break the oppressive silence. "Eidro," Katsuki chides firmly. "Let them rest." It was avoidance, what Katsuki had done from the beginning. The action was cowardly and so unlike him, but charging forward to force a conversation that may lead to an argument and might end in something worse, felt akin to accelerating on a road where you knew half a bridge awaited ahead. So Katsuki urged Eidro to prolong this conversation, stay on the road for a little while longer, away from the broken bridge and the impending fall. Just a little while in purgatory, because in between was better than the finality of death. Katsuki couldn't be sure Eidro had understood why he had asked him to yield, but he did. He walked away from you, feeling wrong in each step he took. The door closed, and you were alone at last. You turned over, glancing at the food, your hunger disapparating. Though you had tried valiantly, your little hunger strike had lasted only a day, and most of said day had been spent sleeping. The painkillers that Dr. Midoriya had given you were strong, akin to anesthesia. You didn't dare take more than the written, recommended amount, for fear that you wouldn't wake up. When you had woken, at around 3 a.m. the next day, the old food had been replaced with new but cold contents that you still did not eat. You thought about escaping in the night, but after hours of contemplation, with your stinging wounds as reminders, you realized it would be pretty dumb of you to go home. The thought of the crazy schoolgirl jumping up from a random corner and promptly stabbing you with her knife was a big deterrent of you leaving. So you stayed in the small room that held only the single bed, the bedside table, a chair that you were sure they'd brought in, and a cupboard that held a few clothes that looked suspiciously like Eidro's. Naturally, you shut the cupboard immediately to avoid the red and black hoodie's temptation. Towards the afternoon, you were on the verge of caving and leaving the room in search of something edible when a double knock rapped against the door. Mina entered, a smile wide and anxious, but she sauntered in with tenacity. "Hey, bestie!" You glare at her, another person who had kept things from you. "Don't call me that." "Oh good, you're talking to me. I was worried with how you haven't left this room since you came," she said casually and sat on the bed. You draw your legs up, decidedly not saying another word. Mina exhales. "Look, hun, I'm really sorry for keeping this from you. Katsuki said that it would be too risky letting you in. And well, he's not wrong. It's like you would be an accomplice to our stealing if you knew, you know? Yeah, well, not knowing also put my life at risk. So it really made no difference, did it?" You counter obstinately. "I guess not," she says, resigned. "You know, Katsuki is close to blowing a fuse, 'cause you're not eating, and Eidro is worried as hell," she mentions imploringly. You had mixed feelings about the information, but maintained your stubbornness. Maybe they should have thought about that before choosing to lie to me, before you all chose to lie to me. Mina seemed to hesitate before speaking again, as though deciding whether to tell you a secret. You eye her curiously, wondering what more they could possibly be keeping from you. She glanced at the doorway, as though checking for prying ears, and then met your gaze head-on. "How about I make it up to you?" she offered with a fox-like grin. "How?" you say dubiously. Well, Katsuki would get really mad if he found out, but I figure we could disguise you, Mina said, scanning your frame with a considering gaze. You sit a little straighter. You had me at it would make Katsuki mad. The wind soared through your hair, propelled through the window by the illegally high speeds Mina was reaching. You gripped your seat to keep from flying through the windscreen as she swung around a curve. The thrill of the drift tearing a laugh out of you. She dropped the handbrake and floored the accelerator. You hear screeching behind you and whip around to find Denki and Zero drifting the bend as well, claiming the road with refinement and raw talent. You fall back to your seat, your mind racing with memories of the few times where Eiro and Katsuki had exposed this side of them. You thought it was a spur-of-the-moment instance, something for the heck of it in late-night drives home, where the roads were near empty, and they could get away with a few tire tracks scarring the tar. However, in reality, it was their second life, filtering into the one you knew. We're almost there, Mina shouts over the rushing air. You look ahead to get a glimpse of what Mina had dragged you far from the city limits for. You see a large, multi-story building, seemingly in disrepair. There were faded and crumbling brand signs scattered on its walls, and parking levels where you were sure light smoke plumed out from. It appeared rather dodgy. Doesn't look like much, you tell Mina skeptically. Mina grins. We call it the AM, the abandoned mall. And don't judge till we get there. The boom gates were wedged open, and Mina drove straight through. She swung harshly into a parking space in the uncovered area. Zero and Denki followed suit at her sides. You follow their lead, hopping out of the vehicle. The open parking lot was near empty, only one or two other cars besides theirs. You hear distant music and search the deserted area for its source. Why'd we have to park here? It's so much walking, Denki complained. Mina crossed her arms. Because I don't like having to hoot my way at a snail's crawl out of the dick measuring contest area. Zero was swift in sticking a cigarette between his teeth and flicking his lighter open. He takes a long drag and lets the smoke flurry from his mouth as he says, You're acting like you haven't won those dick measuring contests. Mina smirks. Yeah, well, not today. We're keeping a low profile, remember? Your eyes flick between them, and you wonder if they meant the cars or if Mina was hiding an appendage in those tight denim short shorts. You didn't think they were dressed low-key. Denki wore a loose sleeveless shirt that was a brighter yellow than his car and contrasted with dark ripped jeans and a black chain around his neck. His eyes sparkled within the thin stroke of eyeliner winged around it. Mina would look good in rags, but she looked even better when she tried. Her blue denim shorts and off-shoulder crop top accentuated her natural curves and God-sent thighs. You were sure that if there were people here, every single head would be turned to her. Zero, at least, was a little less obvious. He favored black, from his loose tank top that showed off the tone of his shoulders to his clean Converse on his feet. You pawed down at yourself and your jumble of clothing, annoyed that you had not been allowed to dress up as well. Instead, you were forced into Eiro's oversized hoodie, a random pair of pants, tackies that were almost slipping off your feet, and a mask Zero had given you, altogether unrecognizable from head to toe. You couldn't help but consider that you would stand out more dressed like this in comparison with your companions. Mina laced her arm in yours, tugging you into her stride. Keep your mask on and your hood up. We don't want to risk anyone recognizing you and telling Shigaraki. Or worse, Katsuki, Denki added seriously. Then we're all fucked. Mina had planned their little escape from the workshop for the late morning of the next day. As it turned out, Katsuki was required to attend a meeting at his parents' company, as a major shareholder. He'd apparently missed the first one, and Mother Dearest was not having him deteriorate their family image further with absenteeism. Mina had managed to convince Eiro to accompany Katsuki, using the argument that she'd be able to persuade you to eat once they were out of the place. So they'd left, reluctant as they were, and would only be back in the evening. Though Mina had been successful in emptying the workshop of their two main problems, Denki and Zero had unfortunately caught them by chance as they were leaving. They'd scolded Mina at first, but once you began your rant to guilt them for lying to you, they'd agreed to let you go and keep it from your partners, on the condition that they tag along for extra protection. Mina led the way to the nearest entrance of the mall, Entrance 5, the decrepit building projecting that of a post-apocalyptic world. The signs above the shops were faded and falling apart, the inside stocked with shelves but devoid of items to sell. A thick layer of dust and dirt blanketed the floor, disturbed only by various footprints that conjoined to form a pathway to the stagnant escalator. As they ascended, the music you heard earlier began to drift in the air once more, a thrilling mix of funk beats that made you apprehensive of the scene you were about to step in on. They near another entrance, and the music is loud and resonating. You step through, into the undercover parking, and marvel at how the abandoned mall, barren of people, transformed at its exit. Nearly every inch of tar was taken by a shiny vehicle. Some were brightly colored, neon even, with extravagant stark graffiti, and others sleek in silvers, whites, and blacks, but no less impressive. A mix of people gathered in the spaces in between, and you could see why Mina and Denki had chosen to dress the way they had. While there were luckily quite a few people in hoodies and sweatpants, the majority were exceptionally styled in outgoing and even eccentric clothing that made Denki and Mina look underdressed. As you walked through the parking lot, made showroom, you noticed that while many were attached to a car and 6 feet deep into a conversation about bodywork and engines, some were just there to enjoy the view. The air was alive with chatter and laughter, and the occasional rev of a car owner showing off. It was easy to sink into the energy of the crowd. Denki nudged you to get your attention. He pointed slyly at an emerald Lamborghini. "We stole that one and sold it to that guy." Your eyes bugged. "You stole a fucking Lamborghini?" "Shh!" Denki hushed hurriedly. "Not so loud." You furrow your eyebrows. "Don't they know? I mean, you sold it to them." "Anonymously," Zero explained. "We use an encrypted site that all the trusted racers have access to. We don't advertise it though. It's spread through word of mouth. I do checks on all the new registries to make sure there aren't cops in disguise or something. Then, when we get a new car, we upload it for like a quarter of the price. That car over there sold for 50K. First come, first serve," Mina continued. "And we take turns doing drop-offs in different locations, with masks and voice modulators. Real creepy shit, to be honest," Denki chirps distractedly, and then points to a silver convertible BMW. "We stole that one too." You nod along, a little stunned by the open admission, and still processing everything. "Do you guys just steal cars randomly, or do you just pick the nice ones?" "Oh, no, Mina objected. "We steal them from those obnoxious rich guys. Most of them can afford to buy another one." "Right, you recall them saying that on the night of the accidents." "Most of them can't drive to save their lives," Zero says, not keeping the judgment from his voice. "When we decide on a car to steal, we normally look for bad drivers who don't deserve to be behind the wheel." "It's really more of a spur-of-the-moment thing," Mina elaborates. "Sometimes, though, we like to Robin Hood things. If we hear about one of them getting in an accident and not taking responsibility, we steal and sell their car and give a portion to the victim family." "The car in the accident?" you ask, puzzled. "No, the car they buy after. Think of us like agents of karma," Mina grinned. That was a lot to think about, and you decide to leave the questions at that. They'd walk to the end of the top floor, towards the road spiraling to the next level, which was also packed with cars. You were amazed by the amount of people a part of this community. Denki nudged you and pointed to that level's mall entrance. A rotted sign with letters missing spelled out Entrance 7 in red cursive. The place where the glass door would be was covered by thick black drapes, Through the thin slit between the ground and the end of the curtain, you could make out flashes of color. "We should hit up entrance 7, Denki suggested. "No, we should take them to the drifting rings," Mina countered. "Aw, but Jiro is DJing today. She plays the best music." "Denki, you need to get over her now. She has a girlfriend," Mina said bluntly. Denki pouted. "What, I can't look?" "How about we go down to the stretch?" Zero interrupted, calmly, stubbing out his cigarette. "Midoriya is racing today." "Midoriya races?" you question, surprised and having difficulty picturing the sweet boy doing anything illegal. "Him and Ka-chan started together before he met the rest of us," Denki giggled at his own inside joke. "They used to steal their parents' cars at night." "Huh, the more you know," you mumble glumly. "The more your boyfriend didn't tell you." Mina clicked her phone on to check the time and hummed. "Well, if we're going to go see Midoriya, we better get going." Zero eyed the vast sea of people, seeming contemplative. "I'm gonna stay up here. Haven't been laid in a while," he says nonchalantly. "What? You're the one that suggested going down to the stretch, man." Denki frowned. Zero shrugged. "You guys weren't making up your minds." Mina rolled her eyes and tugged you forward. "Try not to catch any STDs," she quips as they leave Zero to his endeavors. Mina slings an arm around Denki, seeming annoyed that Zero had chosen to stay behind. You blink at her, strange connections forming in your brain. Zero and Mina, you contemplate. You couldn't have missed that much. As the three of you weave through the crowds, you pass entrance 7 and peek through the black curtains, drawn in by the music. They shut off any source of natural sunlight, giving way for multiple strobe lights to create the club atmosphere. Blue, red, and green patterns cut across the walls and the high ceilings, and projected different patterns on the 15 or 20 people, indulging in the rhythm, with swayed hips and bobbing heads. Denki had been right. This Jiro was good. The DJ stand was illuminated in ultraviolet light, lining its edges, and tucked into a shattered window of a shop. Next to her was what looked like the silhouette of an ice cream vendor. Glow-in-the-dark stickers pasted on its front spelled, "Creati's Creations." One of the dancers hovered over to the vendor. A tall woman next to it handed them a bottle in exchange for some bowls. Denki popped his head into the drapes. "That's Yamomo, Jiro's girlfriend. She sells the best mix of alcohols in that bottle. No one knows what she puts in it, but we'd pay anything for it." For apparently having a crush on Yamomo's girlfriend, he seemed fond of her, unbothered even, considering he was promoting her brand of drink. They take the spiral road down the parking lot, passing a level that echoed with tire screeches. As you pass, you catch glimpses of spoilers swinging within the circles of cheering people. That must be the drifting rings, you reason. How does this not get shut down? You wonder out loud as you walk past. It's private property, Denki chirps happily. Some rich ex-racer bought the whole plot. Then he, or she, Mina interjects, or they, you mention helpfully. Yeah, they bought the entire mall after it got run down, and told a few other racers that they could use this place as their playground. Now it's become an entire scene. Pretty sick, right? That's very charitable, you say, considering. Best charity ever, Denki smiles enthusiastically. What type of person does it take to do something so reckless, and yet nice? Even dilapidated. This land must have cost millions. And yet someone must have loved street racing so much that they'd wanted to found a safe place for others like them. More importantly, what did this mystery person do for a living that they had a couple millions lying around to waste? They stopped at the next level, where a crowd was already developing at the concrete edge of a parking lot. They snag a gap in the corner, overlooking a road adjacent to the mall that you assumed was the stretch. At your end of the road was a height restriction barrier that had a ragged white cloth draped over it. Large bold letters painted in green spread across the cloth, reading "Finish Line" with a few exclamation marks. On the opposite end of the stretch, two cars laid in wait. A grey Mercedes that shone in the low sun, and a white Golf that looked old. Even from a distance, you knew it was an ancient make, and with the rusty patches decorating it, you couldn't imagine it comparing to the machine at its side. Denki hopped onto the cement block. Just in time! At the starting line, you just made out Izuku's head of dark green hair, and his opponent, sporting a purple mohawk and sunglasses. You pursed your lip as he jumped into the smaller of the present cars. "Bestie is judging, Denks," Mina sang, a sly gleam shining in her eyes. Denki grinned, with a rare insight dancing in golden irises. "Don't judge a car by its paint job. Midori has put in some real work on that one. It was a gift from his father, or well, stepdad." Ignition started, and you were pulled back to the race, curiosity peaking after Denki's words. The person in the center swung their hands down, and the cars flew. To your utter astoundment, the old Volkswagen shot ahead, leaving the Mercedes by a significant gap. It struggled to keep up, waning behind its opponent that was half its size. The white blur that was Izuku's car passed swiftly through the height barrier, followed by the grey defeat. The flimsy finish line sheet rippled with the force of the wind, and the crowd erupted in cheers. "Wow," you say in awe. "See?" Denki presses triumphantly. It was only a few seconds, but a thrill even from the sidelines. You try to imagine what it must feel like to be behind the wheel, flooring the accelerator without worry or care of how fast you were moving. Denki hopped down from the cement porch. "Come on, let's go see if Mido feels like buying us celebratory drinks." "You just want to see if he'll let you tinker with his new car," Mina quips. Denki grins. "Well, no harm in trying." Thus far out of the city meant less light pollution to dim the stars. They decorated the sky as the blue deepened, shining wondrously over their little plot of land. As night approached, people filtered out of the AM, bringing their cars out to enjoy the cool air. You were tucked into the open trunk of Mina's BMW, oddly comfortable sipping Creati's creation while surrounded by your companions. Sero's little rendezvous had not kept him long, and he rejoined them at the open parking lot. Izuku, accompanied by his stoic friend Shoto, leaned against his shiny new prize, humble despite the impressive win. Mina and Denki sat on the boot of the yellow Mitsubishi Lancer and giggled in a manner that proved they were deeper into their respective bottles than you. Izuku had tried to discourage you from drinking, considering your condition, but eventually he was countered by peer pressure. Laughter fluttered on the breeze, as Denki tipsily attempted to further convince Izuku to allow him to check out his new car, sprouting something about getting rocket fuel. "Denki, I appreciate the offer really. It's just that I don't want to blow up his new car," Shoto says bluntly. A light chuckle ran through everyone, while Denki sulked cutely into his drink. "You can blow up my sperm donor's car if you want," Shoto suggested. You weren't sure if he was joking or not, but Denki instantly perked up. "Really?" You shake your head at the antics and take a long sip of your drink. You observed others that had also made haphazard social circles with their cars, each ring of people engrossed in their own jovial conversations and messing around. As you watched in your alcohol-induced haze, your heart sunk, shouting itself in shadowed thoughts. If Edra and Katsuki had shown you their world, had let you be a proper member of their group, would they be sharing these little moments together? There were so many couples scattered throughout the AM, and you couldn't help but picture what it would look like for Katsuki and Edro to be here. Maybe drawing closer as the night grew colder. Everyone claimed it was for your safety, but it had been anonymous. How much danger could you have possibly been in? And it wasn't as though you would be taking part in the stealing. They could have at least introduced you to the AM. The worst this place could do was get you hooked on Yamomo's special concoction. Why couldn't they have let you in? You thought glumly, staring down at the golden liquid in your hands. What the fuck were you all thinking? You jerk up from your depressing thoughts, expecting to see Katsuki with that kind of language. However, Edro stood before you, bringing all talk to a standstill. His fists clenched, shoulders taut with anger. What are you doing back so early? Denki asked nervously. We were just risking their lives. You're lucky Katsuki wasn't with me when I came back to the workshop. He would have dragged you to the top of the AM with the Camaro and pushed you over one by one. You roll your eyes, annoyed by Edro's dramatics. You turn away from his accusatory glare in favor of your amazing drink. Relax. It was only a few hours, Mina attempted to placate. It would have taken a few minutes for Shigaraki to get their hands on them, Edro yells. He stomps over to you, pulling your drink out of your hand mid-sip, much to your chagrin. Come on, we're leaving. You cross your arms stubbornly. Fuck off. Edro was taken aback, becoming static with surprise. You'd never really sworn him before. Katsuki, but not him. You flinch away from him, unable to view the hurt swimming in his irises. Around them, their friends shifted uncomfortably. I mean, it is getting late, Mina mentions timidly. Maybe we should head home? Yeah, Denki tries. We don't want to get back after Katsuki. I'm not afraid of Katsuki, you snap. He can be as angry as he wants. I'm staying. The silence is stifling. The jovial air of Midoriya's wind, long since dissipated. Quietly, the people around them drifted away. Izuku dragged Shoto to his Volkswagen, parked a little away from them, and Mina and Denki tiptoed down the line of cars, Zero following impassively. They didn't go far, but far enough to give them privacy. Once the air was clear of a crowd, Edro sat on the edge of Mina's car boot and began to speak tentatively. Look, you have every right to be mad at us and hate us for the rest of your life. But I just want the rest of your life to be decades away. I don't want something to happen to you here. Anyone could have seen you and told Shigaraki, and you'd be... He couldn't bring himself to say it, even to convince you. You hated how sincere he was. Hated that you'd stoned your heart to attack rather than comfort. Well, whose fault is that, Edro? It's ours, he says, not shying away from his blame. And I'm sorry, but please, let's go home and we can... That's not my home, you shout, shaking with emotion, as you finally turn to look at him. It's your home. All of this, you gesture around you, is apparently your home. And it's amazing, but you and Katsuki decided to keep me away from your homes, from your lives. Edro should not have been allowed to look that heartbroken. Not when you were the one that had been lied to. Not when your heart had been the one torn apart. I know, Pebble. We shouldn't have kept this from you. We never meant to hurt you. I'm sorry. So sorry. You couldn't stand to hear him, as his voice trembled with contrition, as his eyes became wet with sorrow and remorse, because you were just not ready to forgive. It might be too late for sorry, you say, the words sharp and hurtful, like a crack of a whip, even as it's delivered with the weakness of a frayed thread. Ezra didn't say anything for a little while, and you knew without looking that he was fighting hard not to cry. I understand, he said hoarsely. But for now, just for now, come back with us. It's late, and Shigaraki will be here soon. If he or his people see you... Please, Pebble, he pleaded. You nod, numb from the emotional strain of the short conversation. You get out of the trunk and stand, searching through your alcohol-hazed vision for Mina's distant pink hair. We can go, but I'm coming back here, and you're not going to tell Katsuki, you say, unwavering in your decision. I can't keep that from him, Edro began. But you had no problem keeping this from me, you spat, more hurt that he could defend his right not to lie to Katsuki, but not your right not to be lied to. Edro stared at you, horribly conflicted, and the stretched pause held you both in limbo. His ruby eyes searched your features. For what? You couldn't be sure. You weren't even sure what showed on your face. Hurt, anger, sadness. Whatever it was that Edro saw made him slump in defeat, and his gaze dropped to the tar. I'll keep it from Katsuki. You swallowed the lump in your throat, nausea turning in your stomach, as you resisted the urge to reach forward and eradicate the awful misery clinging to Edro. But you clench your fists and turn away. I'll ride with Mina. It was pure luck that had you reaching home before Katsuki, and you being out of your designated room kept him from asking questions. He merely looked at you as you avoided his gaze, staring fixatedly at your bowl of Chinese food that they'd ordered ahead of time. He stared so long you almost turned to yell, but then he storms to his room, and the others collectively sag from relief. You eye them tiredly, exasperated, and then glance in the direction Katsuki had gone. Edro had immediately shut himself away once you'd gotten home, and you wondered now if Katsuki headed straight to the same room as him, without you. You turned back to your bowl, losing your appetite once more.